my singular pleasure to join you this morning on such an auspicious occasion of the opening of the 82nd Executive Committee meeting of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Africa Region, here in Accra. First of all, I must bring you apologies from His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, who has not been able to be here because he left the country last night on an important national assignment. And so I'm here in his stead. But if he were in the country, you can be 100% sure that he would have been here. Mr. Speaker, I am aware that this meeting is held twice every year to plan the activities and to discuss issues of concern to members of the CPA Africa region, and to subsequently present opinions and positions on these issues at the main annual conference. I am informed that this year's conference will be held later in the Republic of Sierra Leone. That is why the Speaker of the Sierra Leonean Parliament, Right Honorable Dr. Abbas Bundu, has assumed the presidency of the association. Mr. Speaker, I'm also aware that the CPA Africa region comprises 63 national and subnational legislatures. This important platform undoubtedly presents a very useful avenue for honorable members to deliberate and cross-fertilize ideas on pertinent issues and build consensus on areas of common interest to the various national parliaments and the Africa region as a whole. I have no doubt whatsoever that such deliberations would go beyond resolution of issues to deepen parliamentary democracy, good governance, and ultimately promote human development. This agenda, I believe, ties in perfectly with the mission statement of the CPA Africa region, which is to, and I quote, to promote and protect the interests and perspectives of the CPA Africa regional parliaments and countries into the Commonwealth and beyond, and to promote gender equality, emancipation of women, and respect for human rights, freedom, democracy, and good governance, end quote. Mr. Speaker, in this regard, I urge this committee to continue to champion the resolution of constitutional issues facing the CPA, including in particular the key issue of its status as a charity organization. It is my conviction that the resolution of this matter will pave the way for more flexibility in raising the necessary revenue resources to run the affairs of this group. As a group of parliamentarians, the CPA Africa region is also in a unique position to contribute to the resolution of challenges on security and related matters currently facing the continent. Mr. Speaker, as representatives of the varied and diverse people of the African continent, I can only urge you to strengthen your constructive engagement with respective parliaments in support of their governments for lasting solutions to the myriad of issues confronting our citizens. While we continue to make major strides at the political, economic, and socio-cultural front on the continent, there remain concerns about general decline in democratic governance, with indications of a reversal or subversion of some democratic principles such as freedom of speech, freedom of association, general respect for the rule of law, free and fair elections, and peaceful transfer of democratic power from one regime to another. Mr. Speaker, as parliamentarians, the recent spate of military interventions in our sub-region should give cause for concern. Democratic governance is gradually coming under threat on the continent. It is a notorious fact, regrettable though, that in the event of any instability, it is always the legislative arm of government that suffers the brunt, because the legislative arm is usually proscribed. Mr. Speaker, manipulating constitutional provisions to serve sectional political interests should not, under any circumstance, be encouraged amongst you as representatives of the people. As such, actions only undermine the integrity of our nations, apart from eroding the gains we make as a people. I urge you, honorable members, as trustees of the people's authority, to jealously guard against our democratic gains, since you are directly in contact with the recent military interventions in countries such as Mali, Guinea, Sudan, Burkina Faso, and Chad are undesirable, to say the least, as they set our countries and region back. These developments, coupled with internet shutdowns, politics of exclusion, and rising cases of third-termism, among other similar occurrences, are additional evidences of the decline in our national reconstruction efforts in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, the GDP of Africa is about $2.7 trillion. And this makes Africa, as one economy, the 5th largest economy in the world. However, we must not lose sight of the fact that Africa continues to be the weakest link in the world economic order. Intra-African trade, the convergence of our currencies, at least on the sub-regional basis, and the easing of this agenda, if well pursued, will not only boost Africa's trading position in the global market, but also strengthen Africa's common voice and policies space in global trade negotiations, a key factor which appears to be missing in our engagement in world trade and economic order. Mr. Speaker, the current composition of Ghana's parliament, I believe, is not exclusively unique to us. It's certainly indicative of a voter population that desires consensus building for a unified political force, rather than the divisive, overly partisan, winner-takes-all, intolerant political system which obtained and unfortunately still remains in many African countries. The emerging trend, close to parity in numbers of seats in parliament between majority and minority parties, as obtains also in Sierra Leone, behoves us to perhaps begin to adopt in our procedures and processes new ways of doing business, with focus on a collective approach to delivering the requisite public goods and services for which the citizenry have entrusted us with their money. We cannot relent in our effort to ensure that we live by the ideals and principles of all-inclusive government, government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Mr. Speaker, practices that affect women and children and the marginalized in society should no longer be considered as economic or social issues, but as issues that have direct correlations with democratic governance. It is a democratic imperative that we promote the representation of women and the marginalized in the fields. The 2020 data tells us that women are 50.1% of the population of Africa. Mr. Speaker, it is heartwarming to note that the trend of underrepresentation of women in legislatures is changing across the globe and must be sustained. According to the Interparliamentary Union, the year 2020 was marked by continued gradual progress for women in Parliament, recording 0.6% increase despite the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic and its impact. The global average for the proportion of women in Parliament reached an all-time high of 25.5%. Women won 22.6% of all seats up for renewal in 2020 in 701 chambers across 57 countries. Women took 22.9% of the unicameral or lower chamber seats up for renewal and 21.6% of the upper chamber seats. Mr. Speaker, despite these modest gains, we should not relent in our efforts to ensure increased representation and participation of not only women, but all vulnerable groups in order to make democratic governance and more effective of the social strata of more reflective of the social strata of.
I say take dominion over the earth. Now, we share your senses and work on her. A man, your doors to see member. Into your dinner, all my doors on TV. Now, yen she say a baby was a moment na table when you and father. A bushia be in you or Barney Bema a in charge and community. It is sad that this act in another governance near my massive opportunities to do it together with a member. Mijidi say Kagana upon any baby. Yes, I say, would they or battle position here? It has a shiny proye and shed a new horse. Now, when you say, Unipa win a bit in your yard, and I now can say, I don't know, a mamreni entity out the map or ban a moon you do send your other mabema. Never cast on your bosom table, and never bosom sa, ever pediate in a and she. It's Senia, ye titi oba ni obema. Senia ye ma obama opportunity na yen fa mo oba. Na yen nyina ya ko school ba ko na e ma ne mema nyina wo classroom ho. Unu se ma ne bebrebiti wo dem. Enso ye kopa adwuma wo ye bema wo ma opportunity oba no. Wo bisa wo se na obeware obekwa kowo. Sebi obebu ne nsa ana obekwa ne nsa bekọ na chi dai kan na obe the menstrual cycle. Nti wo ma no opportunity no. Now, we say, Umami, Baba, we learn from that woman. Now, woman is an opportunity. And if you do that, now we empower Obana or you're qualified. Say on your Jumana, and me say, yen celebration every year. Yen Fatima, a year success, a year apt, and so yen tangible progress. Now, every Beppe say, Mestre, say, yeah, affirmative action bill now. I catch him only because he for she's no and mema a bit in that time man she say your bill no and go through no ye share that thing no it's your net ye jina sa platform yi so e jina sa celebration yi so asre mema omunim se ema ye wo ye ka ho bia eye sa na nyankopon hye no no mo boa ya me etimi pass bi ya na me gidi se ye mamba no ne ye nana no ma ye ba no omo de ye be better ase